Welcome to GTN Coaches Corner. We're going to be answering your questions, including whether carbon shoes could be causing injury,
what you should upgrade on your bike,
whether you can do a 70.3 as part of your training for a full Ironman,
and whether you can do cycle training for your running,
and finally, how long should your long run be?
We're going to get straight into your questions, but before we do, remember, you can leave your questions below any of our videos in the comment section. Use the hashtag GTN Coaches Corner so we can pick it up and we can be answering it next week. And while you're down there, remember to like this video and subscribe to GTN so you don't miss any of our future videos. Right. On to our first question, and it's from Sinan Setinkaya. Well, that's a difficult one. Hashtag GTN Coaches Corner. I'm seeing many athletes get stress-related injuries. Has it always been this way, or can carbon running shoes be the culprit? Carbon shoes are cutting edge. They make you run faster, but at what cost? Well, interesting question, because we actually released a video on this just the other day, and you can go and watch that if you want to. Carbon running shoes are not necessarily causing injuries. They're not something that should or could cause injuries on their own. However, carbon running shoes are a whole new stride length, a whole new stride rate, a whole new stride pattern. And suddenly jumping into long runs or hard runs or long hard runs on a new shoe can cause injuries. You're using a different stride pattern, using a different gait, and if you are not prepared for it and you don't give your body time to adapt to it, definitely you can cause injuries, and stress-related injuries such as stress fractures are some of those injuries that it can cause. So carbon shoes are not necessarily causing injuries, but yes, using carbon shoes wrong, suddenly jumping into marathons running carbon shoes could very well be causing injuries.
Yeah, I think because they're so sort of thick and look so cushioned, people think of them as a perfect training shoe, and you run faster, so you feel good and you want to wear them all the time. But I'd started to look at them a little bit more almost like a racing flat or a spike. Though when you were training for faster runs, you'd bring out your fast shoe for those sessions and you do the rest of your sessions in another shoe. And yes, I know it involves buying another shoe, but if you are training to race, ideally you want to keep a race pair fairly fresh anyway. So look at it as being able to kind of be more economic with your shoe purchases and have another shoe that you interchange. And I think it's also good just for your foot strength and your general conditioning to not always run in the same shoe. I personally love mixing up the shoes depending on what sort of run I'm doing, and it kind of helps mentally as well.
Yeah. Anything new needs adaptation, so give it your body time to adapt to it.
Yeah, well, our next question comes from JC. It says, GTN Coaches Corner, doing my first half marathon next year in Ireland and just wondering what is the best investment for the bike leg? Fast tyres are a no-brainer, so should it be a very good TT clip-on bars for my road bike or a disc wheel? Well, Joe C, I mean, the price difference of the two and the gains are quite extremely different here, and in a good way, because basically aero bars are going to be your best investment by far. A, they're much cheaper, and B, they will make so much more of a difference as long as you do get used to riding them. So I would forget about the disc wheel for the time being, unless you're going to kind of take it really seriously and you want to look for those more marginal gains. But clip-on aero bars are just probably one of the first things we'd recommend for moving up or trying to upgrade your road bike. They don't cost very much, and they are just changing that position and reducing your frontal area that's going to be just reducing your wind resistance so much.
Yeah, your body is the biggest drag on your bike, maybe 80% or more of the drag. So if you can get that as tucked as possible, and that's what the aero bars are going to do, that's your answer. Yeah, a disc wheel is very much marginal gains once you optimized everything else. All right, thanks for the question. Next question is from Richard Cook, and he asks, GTN Coaches Corner, I did my first Ironman 70.3 in Weymouth, and now I want to do a full one. Do you think it would be worth booking a 70.3 in the lead up to doing that full one as a measure to see how the fitness levels are? And if so, how long before the Ironman is a good idea to do the 70.3? Well, Richard, well done on doing that 70.3, and good luck for your Ironman prep. That's a great next step goal. Yes, doing the 70.3 in the preparation for your Ironman is a good idea. You can practice all the logistics, the strategy, your pacing, your nutrition, everything like that. So it's very much a good idea. If you can book one and you can find one local that's not going to be too much traveling or too expensive, then definitely try and do a 70.3 in the lead up to it. Now, when you do that is really up to you and when it's available, but ideally you want to do it about 6 to 8 weeks before that Ironman. It's far enough into your Ironman training that you're going to be fit enough to give the 70.3 a good go and do it at your race paces for the Ironman, but it's far enough away from the Ironman that you can recover fully for it and get ready for your Ironman. What you don't want to do, a word of caution, is do a massive 2-3 week taper for that 70.3 and then a week or two of recovery afterwards. because all that is essentially 3 or 4 weeks out of your Ironman training, and that's not worth it. You won't get the same gain from doing 170.3 as you get from 4 weeks of training. So make sure you're training all the way through that. Maybe a small taper, maybe a few days easy afterwards. But yes, do it in the lead up to your Ironman. I would say if you can't do one 6 to 8 weeks before, you can do one earlier, but obviously you bear in mind that you might be not as fit and you will be fitter on race day. And you can do one later, but probably not in the last 4 weeks before an Ironman. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it's also just nice to kind of break up your training. I find it's kind of having something else in the diary, and it can take off that pressure of the Ironman when you're doing so much big training. And just sort of keeps things fresh. So good luck with that anyway. Now we have a question from Maxi Muller, who says, in a few months, I'll be running my first marathon. I'm new to running. However, I would consider myself a pretty decent cyclist. Would it be detrimental to my marathon training? And if so, to what degree? If I do, instead of scheduled long runs, long bike rides? Or in other words, how much cycling as marathon training can I get away with? Well, Maxi, you're definitely sounding like a cyclist with these questions, and I don't think you're going to like our answer particularly, because even more so if the fact you're coming from cycling and you're moving into running means your body is going to need to change and get conditioned to running these miles, and the time on feet, which you might have heard people talk about, is so important when it comes to the marathon. And the long run is going to be your key run, really, because it sounds like you're quite fit from cycling, but it's that just getting used to your body, of holding your body weight, that impact of running for long lengths of time. And if you'd maybe come from the running background and you were struggling with injury, you could potentially do some of the longer rides, longer runs as cycles. But I'd say for you, it really does need to be trying to focus on that running with that background.
Yep, I agree with that 100%. Unfortunately, your cycling is going to give you some aerobic benefits for running. It's going to transfer some of that aerobic fitness, but the real challenge in the back half of a marathon is that tempering of the legs, that real pain in the legs, being able to handle the impact for the whole 42 kilometers, and you just can't train that on the bike. Your long run are key, and you definitely can't be skipping those to do long rides instead. You can use cycling in your run training as recovery from run training after your long run. If you want to flush all that lactic acid and whatever else out of your muscles, then absolutely go for a ride. And yes, you can use it from some aerobic training, but you can't substitute for your long run, I'm afraid.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry about that. Our final question, and this is from Steph Janssen, in 2 parts actually. So continuing on this long ride topic, how much percentage of goal time should a long run or long ride be? I mean, if you're planning to have an 8-hour bike ride, having done just 3 hours in training seems a bit low, right? Well, yeah, you're right. It does seem a bit low. To do an 8-hour event when you've only done 3 hours as your longest ride does seem pretty challenging. However, the way you decide on what your longest ride or longest session of the week is in your build up to your event is not based on how long your event is. It's based on how long it's going to take you to recover from that session. So if you're going to go out and do 7 hours because you're preparing for an 8-hour event in a few weeks' time, the problem is that 7 hours is going to leave you in a hole for a whole week, and you're not going to do any other training while you recover from your 7-hour training session, and therefore it's not actually very effective training. You need to get to the point where your body has been stimulated to adapt to the level that you've pushed it to, and then you need to rest so it recovers and do it again as soon as possible. That is what the training principle is. It's not going out and doing as close to the race distance as possible, as often as possible, so that you're ready on race day. Obviously, it depends on how fast you can recover. There are shorter races. For example, if you're training for a 10K, you can absolutely go and run 10Ks in preparation for a 10K, because you can still recover from it in 2 or 3 days and you can carry on with your training. However, riding 8 hours in preparation for an 8-hour event, you're not going to recover from the next day or even in 3 or 4 or 5 days, and you're losing all that recovery period where you can't train. So that's how you want to base it, not based on the duration of your session. You want to have consistent training, and the way to get consistent training is to just push your limits a little bit and then recover and push your limits again, not to just absolutely smash yourself and get as close to that goal time as possible.
I think it's that if you've come from doing short distances like you mentioned, and you're used to, well, if I'm going to race a 10K, I've got to at least run it or ride in training, whatever, which is totally normal. But if you look at ultra runners or ultra cyclists, they can't physically go and ride their bike for 3 days straight or go and run for 24 hours beforehand. It just wouldn't physically be possible outside of the race support. So that might give you an idea of the kind of scale. And if you look at the pros, they will train that way as well. And obviously they even have more time than us as age group athletes. So
if you're looking for the confidence thing, I will say you can go out once, plan it into your training program and get close to that duration of your event just for a confidence boost, but you have to build that into your training so that the recovery is built into the training and you know that that's coming and you're going to have that little dip, but you can still get the confidence. Then it is worth it, but you can't be going out every week trying to get close to that race duration.
I would just say another nice way for the confidence boost is potentially splitting it over the weekend. So maybe you do a fairly big ride on the Saturday and then another one the Sunday morning that's maybe not quite as big, but you're just adding that volume, and it's also that mental kind of aspect that I can do it over a weekend, now I've just got to put it together. But good luck with that. Hopefully these answers have been helpful for you guys and anyone else watching, but if it's triggered a question that you've got, you know what to do, leave that question in the description below, and hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Give us a like.